Hello, hello, and welcome to Your Super Superpowers on Facebook. I am Lindsay Baldessano, and I am here to help empaths and intuitives get in their light, stay in their light, and start building up their positive energy bank practices so that they can have the fuel, motivation, and the sheer amount of joy they need in order to go after those big dreams and create a revolution of healing in this world. So today we are talking all about what your creative and your intuitive process is and how you know if you're connected to it. Now, this isn't something that I necessarily learned from anywhere. Anything that has to do with dream casting, which is my own answer to manifestation and intuitive planning, is something I had to make up. It's something I had to create for myself. It's something I had to feel into. So, hello, whoever's on, give me a hi and let me know how your Wednesday is going and what you plan on doing for solstice today. The solstice is amazing. I can already feel the energy shifting. These last couple of days when Neptune was going a little retro, just a little bit, was coming into retrograde. Oh yeah, things have been shifting and bubbling up for me like I never thought they would. Because, you always tend to presume that things are going to go as easily and continue from where you are from one moment to the next. Ego likes to make that presumption. And so has other ideas. The universe has other ideas. We are continually asked to grow and to expand. So, the intuitive and the creative process. Yeah, I didn't even know I had one. I didn't even really know that such a thing was, really real. I thought it was just a really good excuse for artists and creatives to take, a nice retreat, to really just take a break from it all. Because I did understand at the time that really helped. And why I'm talking about this kind of thing for intuitives is that I find that when we're trying to employ our intuition in a creative way, so when we're creating courses, when we're writing books, when we're building a business, when we are in the business of selling our creations even, there is a whole process that we each have. And if we don't know what that process is beforehand, before we start our big project, before we start the business, before we start writing the book, we tend to get a little stuck because we think that, the thing we had going, that flow we had going when we were initially inspired, that it's because it fizzled or because it dropped away or because you came into some kind of unclarity and then you feel a little bit blocked, that means something about your idea. It means something about yourself being able to complete a given task, to work within guidelines, to work within a responsible way. Because a lot of us have been told our whole lives that our sensitivities are some kind of impairment. But there's no way I was going to let that dictate what I was capable of. And I knew that there was such power in the depths of what I was feeling and experiencing as an empath, that there was no way it was some kind of impairment. And then, in fact, it had to be my super secret power. So as I was coming into my own consciousness practices and, that whole up level in my life, it really brought home that sensitive heart, that heart that can hold all that light and all that love and all that depth and all that power, was really my sacred center. And it was only from that place that I should be creating and producing and when I started living from that space and creating and then being out in the world from that space, well, okay, everything changed because that's what happens. Everything changed. My whole life shifted. But I came to see how I had been working in such a way in this very particular process of my own for years. But I didn't recognize it as a process because I had so internalized all my feels. I had so internalized all the messages that were coming through as something about me, as some kind of false evidence, from what my mom said when I was 6 and I wasn't, really good with doing all my math homework. One has nothing to do with the other. And the other thing I do want to say, before I delve into a little bit more of the detail behind the creative intuitive process that you probably already have, is that when you're coming into learning something new, learning how to do something new, whether it's, writing a new book, because each book is different. Each book is its own thing. Building a new business, developing a new course, developing your marketing around courses, any of these creative pursuits that we do every day. Well, okay, maybe not that we do every day, but that we're coming into the space of needing to do. You felt the call, this is, part of how it's going to get done, because it's hard to run a business without marketing, because it's hard to sell a book or a concept or a course without actually having written some of it. When it comes to then being able to support that long-term new thing that you're invested in, you might not ever have had the experience of supporting that kind of thing before. And so really getting to know what your intuitive and your creative process is when you're beginning something is an invaluable tool. Because at least the way I view it is that you kind of start everything with a clean slate. You start your next marketing project, you start your next promotion, you start your next course, you start your next whatever it is that you're doing, your next project with a clean slate, idea-wise. And you learn what you need in order to support that. Because different content is going to have different intuitive guidance around it, is going to bring up different things in you. It's going to get you going from into a different place within yourself. So this is why just having this idea that there is some kind of framework that we need to work through, and no, it's not linear. It's not necessarily something you can just, give yourself a deadline and try plugging into your calendar. But just knowing that there's this process and knowing where you are in that process will help you move so much more smoothly through your manifestations and through your birthing process that you won't know, well, you'll know exactly why you didn't do it before because you didn't have the framework. I'm not saying that just to sell things. I'm saying that because I'm like, once I saw that there was this process and I was doing it, whether I realized it or not, and why all the times before it hadn't quite worked out, was because I realized, I had certain breaking points. I had certain disconnect points in where that process was going. And if I had had the clarity of where I was in that process, I probably could have completed all of those things too. And it really had nothing to do with me or my competency or my ideas. It was just me learning to work with my own energy and my own process for getting guidance, for getting inspiration, and getting it out again. So, that being said, here we go. I did jot down some steps that I know that I go through. And like I said, they're not necessarily linear. And they might not come all at once and all together. And that's the crazy part. But this is intuition. This is creativity. Once we understand that it's not necessarily time-based, one day after the other, one moment after the other, we can learn to work with that too. So the first step is dreaming. The first step is getting that intuition, is looking into an idea and saying, you know what, I see this gap that nobody's talking into. And I really feel like there's some gold that I need to share through this. Whether it's a business or a book or a class or whatever it is you're trying to create. So you're in this research, you're in this reflective stage. You're saying like, oh my gosh, look at that. Why didn't I think of that before? And we can stay in that stage for a little while we're honing the idea, while we're getting the bigger picture of it. Then at some point it's going to shift into stage 2. And you're going to go into a download phase. Now, sometimes that happens pretty quickly after the first inception, when that first seed comes down, and then all of a sudden you know, or you feel very inspired to just start doing, start writing, start being in this energy, start getting the project going. And that download process, depending on what it is, that's going to take a while. If you have a long-term project, you're probably going to have to go through a few stints of this download process as you are downloading different sections of what you're doing, different chapters, different topics, however that's going to fall, however your brain and your energy and your light works with that. So the third step is deeper clarity. And I purposely reframed this because this is where we get into writer's block or some kind of creative block. But really, the point is not to stop us. The point is not to have us doubt the idea. And this is where I would always just continually fall off the wagon. I'd be like, oh my God, I had such a good idea. I even got half the course written, whatever it was. And now it all sounds like crap. Well, F. F it. But really, that point is asking you to come deeper and deeper into clarity. And I can't tell you exactly what that clarity is, because whatever is moving through you during the download process, whatever those big questions are, whatever those decisions that you have to make about what this is and who this is for, and why am I even doing this? What is the end result? All of that kind of stuff. This is where we have to, start working with what is moving through us, those questions, those doubts, and start letting those things prepare us to improve our work. Start moving us into a little bit more of a editing process. And editing is a whole step on its own. It's the next, what I'm going to call at least the next step. And I know a lot of people have some weird I'm not enough issues around editing their work, editing their writing, their grammar, their spelling, having people give them constructive criticism, even around maybe how to rearrange stuff so that it flows better. And that is a huge thing I had to get over. And when I was really learning and leaning into the idea that there was this whole creative process that could be helping me instead of caging me into a format, into it has to be this way, was simply that I had to get my project, whatever it was, the book, the course, the content, I had to get it ready for finishing school. If my project was my baby, I had to prepare it at some point in order to get out there in the world. I had to polish it. I had to give it some manners. I had to give it some some way to know how, or some inherent way to interact with the world rather than just here's this paragraph about what I think and why I think it. It had, you had built in ways to draw people in. Not because I was a bad writer, not because my ideas sucked, but because ultimately people buy these creative things so they can interact with them, so they can be part of the energy too. So when I finally realized that editing was something that wasn't about me or my grammar or da-da-da-da, and it could be formatted 1,000 different ways, then it became, then how do I want to play with this? How do I want to breathe life into this? I'm creating this body out of clay, so to speak, my ideas, my words, my time put into it, the inner work that has to go into birthing something and having those feels and that clarity move through you. Now, how do I want to prepare this world? So I tend to think of the editing process of, how do I get my baby ready for finishing school, for being a productive member of society? And then the final stage is learning to play off your work. I feel like I almost say like I have kind of like bypassed a step here by learning to let go. Learning to hit the publish button, learning to say it's enough. And when I was coming into the editing phase of saying, I have this huge body of stuff I could put out, right? How do I know when I'm done? How do I know when it's ready? And this is why I say, like, you got to get ready for finishing school. Because even as you're raising a child, of course, you always want to keep that child around, and that child is always going to be part of your family. It's always going to be part of what you love, that web that you're building into life. And so we never really let go of it, and I'm certainly not asking anybody to, as they're coming into these stages of intuitive and creative processes. It's just more or less knowing that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay on its own, and it's going to be okay no matter what people think of it. And it's not because then you are focusing on the criticism behind it, but knowing that no matter where people are in this process, in their own process of their healing, they're going to read what they need to read into it. And as long as you've kind of rounded your work out in such a way that it can also speak to, address, and support that, what else can you do? It can stand on its own. Your teenager now can stand on his or her own, now that you've taught it the life skills you need to teach it. And now you can come into a deeper and new relationship with it, hence that final stage of learning to play off your work. Because just because you finished the project, it certainly doesn't mean you're done with it forever. Because, and this is where Lindsay's logic always fails. So I feel like I have to point this out. No matter how much you love your project and you believe in your project, you still have to sell your project. You still have to always sell it. Your book, your course, your next contract with somebody, you are still going to always be in this process of having to sell why it's useful and sell why it's a good thing and sell why people need it. And for me, that's really just like learning to feel into, all the strengths your teenager does have, and learning to talk into that in any given conversation where it's needed. But you have to have that separation of, here's my teenager, and it's going to do things out in this world. He or she's going to do things out in this world. And I can't always be part of that decision. I can't always be part of how people are going to take my teenager, but I can learn to play off of where they are and how they're feeling and how it's coming out and how it's being taken to make this a constructive and a beautiful conversation going out there in the marketing world, or out there in the world where every day you have to talk to your new contractor about, why the project needs to develop in this certain way. So those are the steps: the dreaming stage, the downloading stage, deeper clarity stage, which is where we work through our blocks, we work through the clarity that's coming through, and getting ready for finishing school, your editing process, your rounding out process, and then learning to play off your work. Pardon me. I think I'm coming down with a cold. It's just a weather change. It was like 90 degrees these last couple of days. It's over 90 degrees. So I've been hibernating because me and heat don't always get along. Me and humidity, really. It's always humid in Pennsylvania because we have too many trees breathing. That's not true. Trees need to breathe because trees are beautiful. I actually love trees. I just get a little like, have to breathe all at once, all summer long, because that really sets my inflammation off. So, I've been hiding in the air conditioner, and that's got my sinuses all backed. So anyway, each of those 5 stages is really like completely different from each other. And we can't expect the same steps, the same daily routine, what I like to call your rites of being. You actually come into center in order to do something very specific. We can't expect it all to apply to every single step that we're going through when we're birthing something. So the download process is very, very different than all the other stages. It needs something a lot more different from you during that stage. When you were in that very intense point of downloading information, like I tend to need to be like clear desk, tons of paper. I have to give myself 2 or 3 days to get the bulk of it out. And I have to have a lighter, like online work schedule in order to allow that to come through. And I need that space to just make it happen, to be connected to the flow, to ground that inspiration down and start turning it into something real. And it's very different from the editing process, where I'm feeling into what I wrote, where I'm gleaning the clarity, where I'm maybe doing a lot more journaling, a lot more introspective work about the potential the content has. When I'm deciding the format that's best going to serve the project and serve the people who will ultimately consume it. It's a very different phase. When I'm downloading, everything feels like da 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 da. I'm online. I am so directly connected. My intuition is there. I might even give my space time to do readings in that time because I have to do something with the energy. And reading for other people for me is always a really, really good outlet. Or sometimes I found myself, if I'm in the middle of writing something for my Super Secret Powers business, I will have to go and I will continue to write in the evenings, but I'll write fiction because I have to sustain that flow. And I know that flow is only going to last for so long. And then I'm going to have to go into an editing stage, into a where is this going stage, and depending on the length of the project, it kind of goes like that in cycles. If it's a quick project, like say you want to download your 5-day challenge, that can be done in a week or 2 and ready to go. So you have to see this as a process that is totally scalable toward what you're working on and what you're specifically asking to download. Because we have to be co-creators. We have to ask for what we need, whether it's the clarity to get through the blocks, whether it's the right format so that it becomes easily consumable and everybody wants it. We have to ask for what we need in this process of birthing. You know, like we can't be afraid to ask for the epidural. We can't be afraid to ask for, you know, somebody else to come in the room to help support us through our Lamaze breathing because your husband is just losing his shit. Can't be afraid to ask those things. Anyway, I think that is all I basically had to say about that. But if anybody has any questions, ask. If anybody has any like aha points where it's just like, I see how I could have had this process all along, because this rang some bells for me. Go ahead and let's talk about it. And this is all coming out now because I am launching my dream casting course for the summer. And I am actually looking to take on clients who want to have this one-on-one private tutoring through this. So you'll get the base course, and then you'll get 4 sessions with me in order to really feel into what your process is, so that you can get your rights being done, so that you can learn to figure out consistently like where you are in your process and what you need in order to support that process, so you're just rolling through and giving yourself the nourishment, giving your project the nourishment and the time and space you need to actually birth it. Because once you find that flow in you, you're not going to know like how you even created without it, because it's going to just be like, well, you know, it's like going into birth without knowing Lamaze. Let's put it that way. Because even if you're not doing Lamaze perfectly all the time, during that process, it's like, all right, let me find this way to center back into what I'm doing, because now I know another contraction's coming. So I know I need to build that space. I know I need to give my body the oxygen it needs. And I know I need to get calm, because even though it's going to hurt, it's not going to be for long. Not necessarily your creative process has to hurt. But in addition to the private sessions, you'll also get a look ahead reading, so you know what Spirit is trying to tell you about the flow and the potential of these projects that you're working on and how it could unfold. So if you have that really big project, you're going to get a lot of useful and valuable stuff right up front. So, you know, like if you are in that space where it's just like, I know I need to put this out. I know this is going to start moving through me, and I know I need to learn how to support this. Then get on with the ultimate dream casting package. You can just get the course for $50. But if you are interested, if this does feel right and it does feel the time when you have to get this out and you need to learn how to support it, then just PM me here on my business page and we will see if you are a fit for it. It's only $350. That is not a lot of money, considering other coaches and other teachers and other editors are going to charge you thousands to work with you individually on your project. But this is going to be fairly self-contained, and you're going to just be able to use these things as you need to. Because the whole point of this is teaching you to hone into your own process so that you aren't reliant on everybody else in order to get this done. Not to say you don't need editors and you don't need coaches. You do need to build up your own resiliency in order to birth huge, beautiful, healing, and transformative things into this world. All right? And I hope to hear from you. I hope I get a PM from you, because your project, your voice, what is being called into this world through you right now needs to get out there. And I would so love to facilitate that. That would be like crazy awesome shit. It would. All right. I'm going to go pop over into my First Empath Tutors group and do day 3 of the Daily Dream Disconnect series. So if you want to know more about manifesting and intuitive planning and all this awesome dream casting stuff, you can just hop over to the Fierce MPod Tutors group and join that. If not, and if you're already there, I will see you in just a couple minutes. I love you and happy solstice, and go do something fun, because solstice only happens twice a year.